So, as Joy was saying, the ROI has been very difficult so far because we're just so new into accessibility. And so we have two different approaches. And Julie Pinkston, who is the CEO of Visit Lansing, and I have been working together to sort of focus on the ROI that they had, which is really the first real ROI that I've found, the quantifiable ROI that I have found on incremental disability travelers that came to their destination. And and then Erica has a different type of ROI that she's getting. And so the ROI ranges. So let's go with the slides for Julie Pinkston. So something happened. She had a medical emergency. She couldn't be here. Nick is with the state. He's going to pinch hit.
Okay, thanks for the introduction, Jake. And yeah, just want to reiterate that Julie Pinkston, the CEO of Choose Lansing, she's a passionate advocate for accessibility, has done a ton in the state of Michigan and in Michigan's capital city of Lansing. Very proud to have Julie as one of our leaders in Michigan in accessibility. And she had to stay back in Lansing for some other commitments this week, so I'm honored to be taking Julie's place. I certainly will not be able to fill her shoes entirely, but I'm going to do my best here to talk about the ROI of accessibility investment in Lansing. So where did it start? And my former vice president, our travel director, Dave Lorenz, who retired in January, was working with Julie many years ago. One of the first things that our state office worked on were these sensory-friendly performances at the Wharton Center in Lansing. It's at Michigan State University, which is a major Big Ten university in East Lansing, in the greater Lansing area, that has like 50,000 students, draws visitors from all over the place for sporting events and all these performances. And so they created these sensory-friendly performances at the Wharton Center as one of the first initiatives in partnership with the Mid-Michigan Autism Association. Then those have grown. And in a recent conversation with Julie, she was talking to me about the sensory days at the zoo, the Potter Park Zoo in Lansing. And she's able to track the visitation of the folks that register for this. She mentioned that they had visitors from 3 states at this sensory day at a local zoo. And so it shows you there is a demand for this type of programming for people who want to have those opportunities. And Lansing now has added a ton of different sensory-friendly activities throughout the city as part of what they're doing with accessibility. So we look at their website and the things that they offer, they've really built out the content there to describe these opportunities for visitors to the greater Lansing area. And the sensory inclusive info is a big part of that. So under things to do, you can find a calendar of events of special programming activities, virtual tours, so that earlier it was discussed about predictability and making sure you're in control of the experience as one of the big factors for families traveling with someone who has sensory needs. I think this is a wonderful way to address that, is to give them as much information as we can about what's available, how it works, where you go, all those aspects. And you can see here, featured attractions. So they have specific examples of the activities that are available in the greater Lansing area. You can even go drive a go-kart. Are you a go-kart fan, Jake?
I am.
Okay,
yeah.
Me too.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, and this playground here that you see, the Play Michigan All-Inclusive Playground, it is a shining example of the things they are doing in Lansing to create experiences that are welcoming to all, and it's wonderful. They also created an accessibility guide. So in addition to the sensory-friendly activities they have on the website, this accessibility guide goes into the things to do in recreation, but also the lodging and transportation. So they really are focusing on getting people the information they need to plan their visit all in one place. Also, this is an example of one of the property listings on their website. So for Wharton Center, where they host the sensory-friendly activities and performances, they have a specific section on accessibility, what is available, what they do at Wharton Center to welcome visitors with accessibility needs. And the Potter Park Zoo, this is the zoo here. So they have a specific language on there about the zoo's commitment to accessibility, and this is at the individual destination attraction level. So I think this is really great example of a DMO working with their partners to really make sure that it's represented, accessibility is represented across the descriptions, the marketing, the programming, and everything. So some web stats, and we might recognize the young gal in the dress there as Christy Durso was visiting there in Lansing and was able to go to that inclusive playground. And every effort to follow the web accessibility guidelines has been made. And looking at the stats here, the time on site was 1 minute and 36 seconds. So if you know that certain stats like bounce rate and other stats, over a minute long on a web page is a long time. A lot of times it's like 8 seconds or 4 seconds, so this is showing that when people are getting to these web pages, they are spending time there. They also saw a nice increase in the accessibility pages on their websites, almost double or more than doubling, in 2023. They also hosted a tourism accessibility summit. And Christy was there, was probably part of that same visit. She was at the playground. And this is getting their local partners together to really talk about how can Choose Lansing and the team support their improvements and additions to accessibility at the hotel or restaurant or attraction level, and learning from a speaker like Christy, what are folks looking for when they travel? And so really trying to make that effort to connect with the local partners to get them involved and on board with making all of their activities and lodging and options welcome. And also with advertising, Julie and the team have done some really innovative things about looking for places where these families are and these individuals are, and how can they reach them rather than just a traditional advertising mix. They've gone to like parenting magazines, they've gone to community groups, they've done things that are a little innovative in their approach. They may not be reaching big numbers of people, but they're reaching the right people. And I think that's, marketing 101, isn't it? You want to reach the audience that is going to have the most impact on what you're trying to accomplish. And so on their website, they've had this connected with the TravelAbility website, also have information there on TravelAbility, to make sure people are aware of the opportunities in Lansing. So, next steps. These are some of the things that Greater Lansing has done. This interactive map of accessible attractions, lodging, et cetera, is on their website, working with Wheel of the World. And this example in the upper right corner there of these glasses that are available to people with color blindness. So when they can come to the fall colors, it was a great example. You can wear these glasses, enjoy the colors. If you go to Michigan State, you can see the green and white, all of those types of things. And some of these other examples here with the sensory room and the accessibility toolkit that they have created for destination venues and as part of what they're doing with their accessibility guide. Fantastic things that the Greater Lansing team and Choose Lansing team have done. So now we start looking at the ROI. And we talked about this, Julie and I did, and she mentioned that the average is 17%. That was talking about earlier in the MMGY presentation about travelers that identified as looking for accessibility needs.
So I just wanted to interject something. This was a state program that Michigan did, and they used Longwoods. Mm-hmm. And how many of you are familiar with Longwoods? Almost everybody. So they are kind of one of the 5 top research organizations that DMOs work with, and they measure advertising effectiveness primarily. And so they have a big panel. I think it's 250,000.
It's a large sample size, yes.
Sample size. And so one of the questions in 2023 was, did anyone in your travel party require accessibility services? And that number nationally was 17%. And so what you're seeing here is the capital region, which is where she is, that was 21%. And some of the other Northwest Michigan was 12%. And so so this is the first example of benchmarking,
right? I
think that we have right now, and that benchmark is 17%. And so she was 4% above that, and that's the incremental spend that we're looking for. Okay, go ahead.
And what we deduced from that, and what I was talking to Julie about, and I asked her directly, is to me, this would indicate that this is years after they have begun a lot of these initiatives. That
8
this,
years. It was 8 years. Started
So
in 2016.
my personal opinion, what we're seeing with this number at 21% is that there are people returning, they are telling others, the word of mouth, and there are more travelers that can take advantage of the opportunities in Lansing that are traveling there because of the success they've had with other visitors. And so it's kind of like, if you build it, they will come type of a thing, where they have created these experiences and worked with their partners to improve other experiences, and you're seeing some of the results here.
So,
And then on this slide, there are a few different stats here. This is where I really could use Julie to help describe what she's got here. But looking at 451,000 visitors to the Greater Lansing reported they required accessibility services. So that's 6.7% of the visitors during the year. So the Longwood survey indicated 16% of day visitors and 21% of overnight visitors required accessibility services. So that's part of the Longwood study. And when you look at those visitors spent $65 million in the Greater Lansing region with a multiplier effect of 96 million, which is indirect spending. So the total investment of the DMO was 250,000. So when you start
plus
saying
staff time.
Yeah, plus staff time. But as a hard dollar number, 250,000, staff time could be equal to that or greater. But still, if you say it's double, then that's 500,000 invested for a return visitor spending of $65 million. So a significant dollar figure for that ROI.
Well, their analyst, so we calculated it as somewhere around 58 million, just with our calculations, based on just the norms we use. And their analyst pared it down to 13 million when you took out locals, people who would have come anyway, and just the, so this was pure people that were responding to the advertising that was done. Just the, and that was 13 million.
Yep.
So that 250,000, that's 52 to 1. If you count the time in, it's, so that would be around 25, 26 to 1 of an ROI. So that's the first, inkling of a quantifiable ROI. So I immediately contacted Longwoods, of course, and said, let's do a program together where you go back into that group and ask them more, because they've got that group set aside. So that is probably 35,000 people, so so they have that. So we're going to go in with, so we're going to work with them to go back in and then get more data about which disabilities, how they heard about it. What I took away from this is she started with autism.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think this is the easiest place to start for a lot of people, because it doesn't require extensive training. It requires working with, the training with Culture City and with other entities is about 35, people are busy. It's 35 minutes. Yep. And then they take an exam. And if they pass the exam, they get a certificate. And then 6 months later, Culture City goes in and with a secret shopper and audits that location. And then, and then they correct or whatever happens. And then they have sensory bags. But they advertised in parenting magazines to start. And when you think about it, there are other ways to advertise digitally, but there are about 200 parenting magazines around the country, and they're very inexpensive to advertise in. And so I think those were great insights. So.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate you adding the context, Jake. That's where Julie would have been very valuable. That really is helpful for me and I'm sure for the audience.
Because I asked her a lot of questions about,
Yes.
how much she spent, what she spent it on, just and she has all the data, what she spent it on. She would have shared it with everybody here, but, this is gonna be shared with the Ally Club members. So just because we're gonna scale this with them. So anyway, Erica?
All right.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Erica Sears. Very excited to be here for my third year at TravelAbility. I'm like a junior in high school now, so welcome freshmen. I remember feeling overwhelmed as well. I am a tall white woman in my early 30s with long brown blondish hair, wearing a multicolored but mostly green blouse and a black skirt and sneaks. And I'm excited to be here. Also really nervous because I don't have a lot of numbers for ROI about marketing, so when I put this together, I was like, why did Jake sign me up for this? That said, as I get started here, as I get started here, I would say that our initial investment in accessibility within our region was bringing a group of people from the Oregon coast to TravelAbility 2 years ago, and that was probably an $8,000 investment for travel expenses. So keep that in mind as my initial investment. That was just about 2.5 years ago. So I am with the Oregon Coast Visitors Association. We are the regional destination management organization for the entire Oregon coast. So we have 363 miles of coastline, which is a really large region. And I think because of that, my ROI probably looks a little bit different. And I just thought to start with, I would share kind of our criteria for what we decided to invest in, or sort of give ourselves guardrails, because as you'll see, there are so many projects and things that you can get started in that we're like, whoa, where to begin? So when we were looking at different projects, the first one was, what can we do that would be regional? So what would go along 363 miles of coastline that our organization could help support? The second thing was, what could we do that would be collaborative? We have 7 counties, over 25 cities, and 4 federally recognized tribes in our area, plus every state and federal land management agencies. So everything we do is always collaborative. We are not able to do anything on our own. And then for accessibility, we really wanted to make sure we were partnering with projects and with people with lived experience. We didn't want to do something ourselves. We really wanted to rely on and pay companies and people that specialize in this to do it, and to do it right off the bat. And lastly, but most importantly, is that it was visitor focused. And this is something that comes up a lot. We are a tourism organization. We are funded by transient lodging tax dollars. And so I would say that accessibility is one of the #1 products you can work on in tourism that equally benefits residents. But we have to talk about tourists. So there's a lot of really great ideas, and sometimes when people would present ideas, I would say like, okay, so could a tourist do this? Is a tourist allowed in your HOA? Like, is a tourist gonna be able to come here? And so that was sort of our starting guidelines. So here's Wheel the World. I know you've heard about them a lot. Hey. Aaron, if you are the #2 fan of Wheel the World, I'm probably their #1 hustler, and you will see why. So we decided to work with Wheel the World. We had a group of about, I think, 8 to 10 communities on the Oregon coast that had an opportunity to apply for a grant. And so I worked with them, and that was our role, was helping to put together the grant applications, and we got that funding. A second year of grant applications from our state tourism organization, Travel Oregon, opened up. We were able to complete another round of funding for Wheel the World. And in total, we have 13 partner organizations that have worked with Wheel the World. Currently 217 listings with Wheel the World and counting. We have more coming. And in total, our region has spent $350,000 on Wheel the World. I spent less than $50,000, and my partners paid $0. So that's a different presentation. But really exciting, really grateful to Travel Oregon for that funding. So the ROI on that has been unreal. 2.5 years ago, if we decided to just start marketing accessibility, I'm not sure what we would have been marketing, what the product or the call to action would have been. But now the entire Oregon coast, so if I just go back, from Astoria at the very top to Brookings at the very bottom, has Wheel the World opportunities for visitors to the Oregon coast. Love it. Yeah. The second thing that you've heard about earlier, if you were here for Connor's presentation, has to do with MobiMat. This was another item, another product that really started showing up a lot on the coast that our partners were interested in. MobiMat is the brand. There are other brands as well, but this is the product we've been working with. So what we saw was people were able to use their own devices. That was a lot of feedback that we had heard from the disabled community, that they would prefer to use their own mobility devices if possible. But what we saw as a number one hurdle was that local champions said, like, we want a MobiMat, but we don't know how. How much does it cost? What permits do we need? What's the accessibility features that we need? And so Lene on our team spent, I asked her this morning, about 50 hours and developed a MobiMat toolkit. So it cost a lot of time, but $0. She interviewed successful case studies, interviewed Helena with Oregon State Parks and multiple partners, and now we have that available. You can steal it, and it's available in English and Spanish. So we said, okay, here's how to do it. So when our partners show up for a permit from state parks, they're able to say, hey, here's our management plan, our storage, our marketing plan, we have the funding available, and here's the slope. That way state parks can say, great, good work, here's a permit, and get it going. After we had launched that, we then launched our grant program saying that we could fund MobiMats along the Oregon coast. So to date, I think we have 5 locations, soon to be 7. And Seaside, I think they're here. Oh yeah, Joshua. So first we had the city of Lincoln City. They're like, we have the MobiMats, what's up? We have 4 locations, rest of the Oregon coast, where are you at? And then Seaside was like, boom, here's 1,600 feet of MobiMats. We have the longest MobiMats on the Oregon coast. So great job, Seaside. Yeah, two separate mats. So ways that we're sort of measuring this is one, we first had no accessibility to the beaches, so having mats is like, yay, we did it. But also we're able to see a lot of the social media around the MobiMats. I think, Joshua, the one you did a reel of your MobiMat, had like 52,000 views. This was almost 8 times more than the reels before and after it. We see a ton of comments where people say, I can't wait to visit this beach. I can't wait to come back. I can't wait till my aunt visits. I can't wait to visit again. So we're able to also get some of that feedback in real time about these products. And I think most importantly, it is the partnerships. This is where we start getting a little bit harder to measure the ROI. But in the middle, you see a really fun group from last year from the Oregon coast. And so we have been hosting an Oregon Coast TravelAbility group online every couple of months. It costs my team nothing, just my time to facilitate it. Again, we've been doing this for about 2.5 years, and we still have anywhere from like 15 to 35 people that show up. Bureau of Land Management wants to be involved. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife wants to be involved. We have Nature Trust. We have hoteliers. We have museums. Everybody just showing up to say like, hey, what's working for you? What's not working for you? And that model has been so much fun, super inspiring, and we've been getting a lot of work done together. On the left is a screenshot of our MobiMat toolkit that I mentioned, a 25-page step-by-step guide for how to get MobiMats into your community and what to look for. And then on the very far right is a really riveting read. It's called Oregon's Coastal Public Access Guide for Local Government Planners. That was a state agency that put that together, but I was able to sit. They invited me to be on that committee, and I was supposed to be there to represent tourism, and I essentially was there because I didn't want them to say, like, don't put tourism on your beach. But what we did get was a huge section on accessibility, which referenced our MobiMat toolkit and many other projects that our partners have been doing. So we're just strengthening our relationships as we go. And then kind of our next step will be more around communications and marketing. We just launched a campaign with GLP Films. It's not quite ready yet, but videos looking at the intersection of disabled travelers, but also sustainability, and trying to get that deeper story about sort of environmentalists and disabled travelers. So Jake will love this next slide. I'm so sorry, I had to put this in there. I know that ROI is really important, and we have to prove to our boards that we need to spend the money and that there's a business case for accessibility. But that is not why I get up in the morning. I'm not like, yes, we're gonna get that $3.25 billion for the 25%. I think to me what's really exciting is what I call the unquantifiable land. So on the picture, there's rainbows. And really looking at the intersections of this work, which is also a little bit hard to define. But I'm seeing that we have a lot of work that our organization is doing in climate change, in destination management, in workforce development, transportation, and accessibility. And they have a lot of overlap. So a really quick example. A couple of years ago in destination management, the Oregon Coast partners would say, there's too much traffic, there's not enough parking, we need less traffic. What if we invested in public transportation? So this has been a project ongoing for years. 2 years ago in climate action, we said the #1 emissions for us is people driving their vehicles to the Oregon coast. What if we could get them to take public transportation? Then we could lower our carbon emissions. And then now we're seeing, and I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, a self-advocacy, and the majority of the group is disabled. Their #1 priority, public transportation. They're like, we can't get around, we can't get to our jobs, see our friends, get to the doctors. And so like this is what's really exciting to me. And I have what's that thing called later today? I have some kind of appointment thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If you want to date me, talk about this later. This is what I'll be around for, the magical, unquantifiable, out of the box. Out of the box
Consulting room.
Yes.
You can tell she's out of the box.
Thank you.
She's out of the box oriented. So just anyway, so we're out of time. But she will be at the, at the consulting room. And so so thank you very much. Nick, you did a great job.
Thank you, Jake.
I have to tell you, just the pinch hitting. And this was wonderful. There are two different approaches. And one is really just put up as much as you can and they will come. And the other one is prove it to me. And so anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great session.